Welcome back. This is live from Paris, and it's time now for Media Watch France, our roundup of the top stories in the French press. James Creedon is here with the latest. Hi, James.
Evening, Lana.
Scandals have been mounting up, really one scandal after another for President Sarkozy, and this just a few months ahead of the presidential election. But this isn't really that unusual, right? It's to be expected during campaign.
Exactly, and that's what they're saying on the right-leaning website Atlantico. Now, they spoke to a political historian, Jean Garrigue, and he said that scandals like this are not unusual before a presidential election. Often the opposition will try to, I suppose, reveal some not very flattering information about the powers that be. But what is new now is, I suppose, the new media that can disseminate and broadcast this news all the more, I suppose, such as social media and also left-leaning websites like Mediapart and Rue 89, which are very critical of the powers that be. Also, a more aggressive approach on behalf of certain state prosecutors. A third reason why there is more scandal mongering now than in the past is that I suppose the public opinion too is more critical of politicians than it has been in the past. France, I suppose, would have had a more deferential attitude to the political elite than in recent times. Now, what's also interesting, what they're saying in this article in Atlantico, is Sarkozy's presidency has been described as a hyper-presidency, which means that the reaction has also been sort of hyper. So hyper-presidency...
Hyper-presidency in the sense that he was so present on every front and in the media as well.
Almost erasing, you know, the Prime Minister's role, for example. So hyper-presidency makes for hyper-criticism, which makes for hyper-scandals. And they give the example of the Mediapart website, which even had a drama series which they had filmed, obviously not very technically advanced, but it was, you know, they were dramatising elements of the Karachi scandal with the main characters such as Ziad Taqiyuddin, really trying to drip the scandal out. And, you know, so there's an awful lot of scandals in the media at the moment, that's for sure.
Moving on to an interesting topic. I'm very curious about this one. We're still looking at the French presidential election. There's one candidate, Mr. X. We don't know who he is yet. He's been posting campaign ads online, but he hasn't revealed his identity yet.
That's right. There's a Facebook page. You can see it here, J-5.
So that's D-Day -5.
Exactly.
Right?
5 days to go until he unveils his identity. And very swish ads such as this being posted online. This was 6 days ahead of the unveiling, which is next Wednesday. Basically, he's calling himself Mr. X and says that he'll reveal his identity next week. A sort of a political Zorro, you could say. In any case, he's very present online. What's very clear here is that the person behind this campaign has money because they're using the Euro RSCG company, which is a big advertising company in France.
Yes, it's one of the biggest political communications companies here.
Which means you need to have some cash to be to put
they
a campaign like this.
They advise some top politicians in France.
Right, and what's interesting too is the chief suspects of a campaign like this have all denied that it's them. People like Jean-Louis Borloo, he was the former environment minister and has been talking about a possible campaign. Dominique de Villepin, the I suppose, most well-known enemy on the political right of Nicolas Sarkozy, François Bayrou, they've all denied it. Could it be maybe Dominic Strauss-Kahn? Highly unlikely at the moment. He'd be very ambitious.
He had links to Euro RSCG, though.
That's right.
He's
so, you know, there's all this speculation going on at the moment. And what's interesting, too, is that this is not the first time there's been a Mr. X in advance of a presidential campaign. And I'll just show you some old covers of the L'Express magazine if we have a look online. This is L'Express from 1963, and you can see here Mr. X defies Charles de Gaulle, and so everyone was wondering, who is this Mr. X?
A similar teasing campaign going back to 1963. That's surprising.
That's right, and that was 2 years ahead of a presidential election in 1965, and in the end it ended up being a socialist guy by the name of Gaston Defferre. Now he didn't end up running for the presidency, so Mr. X, I suppose, dissipated into thin air, but still pretty impressive stuff.
Staying with the electoral campaign, Nicolas Sarkozy looks like he might have some competition from within his own party. His own foreign minister, Alain Juppé, has caused a bit of a stir today with one of the remarks he made.
That's right. This was last night on the France 2 evening news. And, you know, he was being asked about, I suppose, who could go forward for the right, because Nicolas Sarkozy hasn't actually officially declared that he will seek re-election, but everybody pretty much presumes he will. And so Juppé said, oh, Nicolas Sarkozy is the best placed for the job. You can see it here on Le Monde, which has been amongst other newspapers talking about it. Sometimes he said there can be surprises. So that's a pretty ambiguous sentence
Do you think
to utter.
Alain Juppé is Mr. X?
I was wondering, could he be Mr.
No.
X? It would be the biggest political
That would be very far-fetched.
backstabbing incident ever. He also said that, you're allowed to keep some dreams of your own when he was asked about his own presidential ambitions. The thing is, he was Chirac's right-hand man going back into, I suppose, the 90s, and Chirac famously said of Juppé, he is the best of us all. C'est le meilleur d'entre nous.
Absolutely. The best among us.
I suppose that will swell your head a little if you're hearing things like that, and maybe he still has some ambitions. But what's also interesting is that today he decided to on Twitter and on Facebook and elsewhere remind people that he has been blogging since 2004 and is very anxious to keep up this connection with the public. So some are saying, is it just a coincidence that the following day he then, goes on social media and reminds people to stay connected to his blog?
Interesting.
Intrigue.
We only have a very brief moment for a massive political scandal, unfortunately.
That's right. It's on the front page of Le Monde this morning. The number 2 cop in Lyon has been linked or accused of having links with an international drug trafficking ring and organised crime. Now, this is pretty extraordinary because he is the quintessential clean cop in the eyes of the media. He's participated in TV shows where he was described as incorruptible, an old-fashioned cop. It's pretty extraordinary as somebody who symbolised, I suppose, a clean, old-fashioned cop being linked with organised crime. So it's a big story in France today.
Definitely a story we're following in the news. Thanks very much for that.
Thanks, Lana.
That was Media Watch with James Creedon. And we're eager to hear your comments and reactions here on France 24. You can follow me on Twitter for that. My account name on there is LanaF24, Lana France 24. Do stay in touch. And don't go away for now. Coming up is Web News, our roundup of the top internet content of the day.